Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Question. Nature of Brahman is Satchit Ananta Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. There is a statement in the Taittiriya Upanishad which gives the definition or lakshana, the characteristics I should say, of Brahman. Brahman can be understood as God. So what's the nature of Brahman? What's the nature of God? Upanishad says Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahma is Satyam, truth. Jnanam, knowledge. Anantam, infinite. So what is meant by Satyam? Vedanta defines Satyam, truth, as abadhitam, that which cannot be negated, meaning that which can never change its nature, which can never not be. That is called Satyam, which always is. It is changeless, ever true to its nature, therefore infallible, most trustworthy, reliable. That's called Satyam. And then it says Jnanam. So this Satyam, one may think that maybe it is insentient Satyam also is that which cannot be negated. Now you have various vessels made of clay, let us say, various pots and pans made of clay. In those pots and pans, what cannot be negated is clay. A pot has a form and a name, and that is subject to change when the pot breaks, but the clay always remains. So, clay or the material cause can be called Satyam in as much as there is something that is not negated. When names and forms keep changing, that very material cause does not change. Therefore, someone may think that Satyam means the material cause of the universe. But the material cause, such as clay, is always inert. For a pot, there are two causes: a material cause from which the pot is made, and an efficient cause, the maker and the material. So, material usually is insentient. If Brahman is material cause, then maybe it is insentient. Therefore it says Jnanam. No, it's consciousness. Jnanam is knowledge. But what we understand by the word knowledge is that knowledge, knower, known, generally in every transaction. This Tripudi or triad is involved. Knower, known object of knowledge, and knowing. So somebody may think that knowledge means different from the knower and known. So it's Anantam. No, this is knowledge which is infinite, which is limitless, which is the content of the knower, known and knowing, which is consciousness. So that is how the Taittiriya Upanishad defines Brahman. Now here the question is, what is very famous about Brahman is there is Satchidananda. So Satyam can be equated to Sat or existence. Jnana can be equated to Chit or consciousness. But how come instead of saying Brahman is Satchit Anantam, why is this expression very prevalent? Satchit Ananda. Because Ananta and Ananda amount to the same thing. Because Ananda or happiness cannot be anything that is limited. The statement in the Chandogya Upanishad says, Yovai Bhuma Tat Sukham. Explaining what Sukham is. Says, Yovai Bhuma, that which is abundant, which is limitless, is Sukham, happiness. Only limitless can be happiness. Nalpe Sukham Asti, it says clearly, there cannot be happiness in what is limited. Happiness is the limitless. Therefore, Anantam is limitless. And limitless alone can be happy. Therefore, Anantam can also be equated to Anandam, Asukham, Satchit Ananda. So Ananta and Ananda, these two words are different and having different meanings. But only Anantam can be Ananda. Anything that Antavat or limited cannot be happiness. This is what Upanishad says. Meaning that no object or entity in the universe can ever be happiness, because whatever it is that experience in the universe is limited. And alpe sukham nasti, in limited there is no happiness. Happiness is only in the limitless. So where do you think limitless is? If what all we experience is limited, then where is limitless? Is it anywhere? Whatever we experience, something can become the object of our experience only when it is limited. And so that we do not experience anything that is limitless. Isn't it so? So what does it mean when it is said that what is limitless is happiness? When we do not see or experience anything what is limitless, does it mean that there is no happiness anywhere? This is a question on my part, by the way. If limitless alone can be happiness, and whatever it is that we experience, however great that thing is, but whatever we experience is going to be limited in time, place, and attribute. Because our mind can only comprehend something limited in time, place, and attribute. So whatever it is that we experience, or whatever we can experience, not only now, but any time, here or anywhere on the earth or heaven or any place, however great it is going to be limited. And limited cannot be Ananda. So is there Ananda anywhere? Everything is limited. That means there is no happiness anywhere. Is it not so?
Consciousness is unlimited.
Where is consciousness? Consciousness unlimited. Where is consciousness?
In the self.
Not in the self, the self. Not what is experienced, but the experiencer. is limitless, is consciousness. Therefore, this definition of Satyam Jnanam Anantam or Satchit Ananda, only one entity can satisfy this characteristic. Nothing in the world can satisfy this characteristic of Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Only the self can satisfy. So this also says Brahman is the self, Brahman is Anantam, infinite, the happiness, Ananda, and the self. In these three words, lots of things are said. The entire Vedanta is, Vedanta means Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. That is contained in the statement Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So that is how what is popular is Satchidananda. Not Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Not Satchidanantam, Satchidananda, but Satchidanandam. Satchidanandam. Satchidananda has become very famous because Anandam, when we analyze, will turn out to be Anandam. So yesterday in reply to a question we said, somebody asked last night, Swamiji, I am a householder. How should I structure my life? The answer was, you may or may not have the freedom to structure your life because the demands of life may determine what you do. But in the life that you are living, with the freedom to make that life a process of offering to Ishvara. So, here's the question. What are the characteristics of a sadhaka who makes every duty offering to Ishvara? We're looking at some daily lives examples. Basically, who is the one who makes offering to Ishvara? A bhakta makes offering to Bhagavan. Therefore, in order that our action is performed as an expression of our devotion to Ishvara, we have to invoke a devotee from ourselves. Whatever a devotee does will be automatically offering to Ishvara. When I invoke a son from myself, whatever I do will be for my parents, father or mother. So whenever we perform any action, any duty, we invoke from ourselves an entity. If that right kind of entity is invoked, then what we do also will be right. If the right entity is not invoked, what we do will not be right. I am a musician singing devotional songs, giving a performance. So while singing devotional song or bhajan, that bhajan does not necessarily mean is an offering to Ishvara. Depends upon who sings that bhajan. Whether in singing a bhajan, what is my agenda? To please the audience, get their clappings, to project my ego. In what I am doing, such as even singing the bhajan, am I projecting myself, ego, or am I projecting Ishvara? This choice is there. Let alone performing these mundane duties which are rather difficult to connect to Ishvara. Even when you perform an act of puja or singing bhajans, which are devotional acts as far as the form is concerned, but the form does not necessarily make it a devotional act unless there is a spirit. So it is a spirit that really makes an action an act of devotion, not a given action. It can be any action. You can be sweeping the floor also. I mean, you may be doing some very mundane or very lowly kind of action, and still it can be bhakti. I'm sure you know, in Ramayana there was this character of Shabari. Whatever she did was an expression of her devotion to Lord Rama. Whether she swept the trail upon which the Lord might be walking, whether she prepared her front yard with the cow dung, whether she went to the forest to pluck fruits, whatever she did, what was in her mind was Rama, Rama, Rama. What would he like? How would it feel? And therefore, all those menial actions become bhakti. And someone may perform very exalted actions. That doesn't mean that menial action means bhakti or there is no such thing. But point is not the form of the action that decides whether it is an offering. It is the spirit behind the action that determines whether it's an offering to Ishvara. So what are the characteristics of a sadhaka who makes every duty an offering to Ishvara? A sadhaka who invokes for himself or herself a devotee. Puja Swami used to say, he was very fond of saying this, that all the relationships that we have with people in the world are all really meaning that I am a son to my father, brother to my sister, etc., etc. So depending on who I relate to, I keep on changing. But with one, namely Ishvara, my relationship is one of devotee and Ish Bhagavan. So what our Swamiji would say is that you may be performing variety of roles in the day-to-day life. Maybe mother, father, spouse, boss, subordinate, whatever you are. If you remember that I am father devotee, mother devotee, thus if devotee is my primary recognition, and the devotee keeps on assuming different forms like father, mother, son, daughter, that's possible. Father is not son, and son is not brother. Father can be devotee, son also, the meaning that even when my roles keep changing, that I am a devotee can remain changeless. So that is the characteristic of someone who makes the duty as an offering to Ishvara. That someone who invokes from the self, a bhakta. Whatever bhakta does is the bhakti to Ishvara. Me looking for some daily life examples. But it's easy to give standard examples. As I said, I give example of Sabari. There are many in our Puranas, of course. Whether it's Lakshmana or Sita, Hanuman, Sabari. All of these are totally dedicated their lives to Lord Rama. The only agenda in their life was doing what is right for Lord Rama, whatever cost it involved. So lots of examples are in Purana. It's hard for me to say such and such person is like that, because what we can see the form of the person, we don't know what is inside. And even if I tell you an example, how will you know? Because you have to penetrate what is inside. And therefore the examples, safe examples that you can present are the examples in Puranas, who are very famous devotees of the Lord, who dedicated, whatever they did was a service to their Ishtadevata. Does it answer the question? May not be an important question, but I'm just curious to learn about Radha Rani. Asking the wrong person, asking Vedanti about Radha Rani. Do our literature or different religious texts mention a number of texts? Not Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't mention Radha by name. But Srimad Bhagavatam gives very wonderful description of the gopis. And what bhava or what devotion they had for Lord Krishna. How that devotion translated in their simple actions, simple conversations, simple interactions. So, if you want to know what is an ideal devotee, you can go to Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many devotees there, of course. Bhagavatam is the katha of Bhagavata. One of the meaning is the devotee of Bhagavan is also called Bhagavata. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of Bhagavata or the devotees also, narration of Bhagavan, of Bhaktas, of Bhakti. But of Radha, if you want to understand, even though Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't mention the word Radha, I think Radha was an invention, perhaps, of a later invention. Of what is the famous? Jayadev from Orissa. Perhaps he is the one who, they say, added this element into the bhakti and described Radha in that way. But regardless, if you want to understand how Radha would have been, in the 10th skandha, there are beautiful descriptions of the gopis. There are 5 songs. One is called Venu Geetam, where the gopis sing about the flute of the Lord. Bhramar Geetam, they are talking to a Bhramar or bumblebee and complaining about Lord Krishna. Yugal Geetam, Viraha Geetam, this beautiful Geetam or the songs are there where their sentiments are beautifully described. So, go to Bhagavatam to get an idea. And then there are about Radha also, there are lot of literature available. Many saints of Vrindavan have done a lot of work on that. Years ago during Satsang, you once described the heart as the palace of Atma. It was a beautiful analogy and I cannot find it again. It involved a courtyard, is it what it says? I remember. Well, if you go to Kathopanishad, it says Puram Ekadasha Dwaram Ajasya Vakra Chetasa. That is this, basically this body or this personality is described as Puram or a city of which the indweller is Atma. Puram Ekadasha Dwaram Ajasya Avakra Chetasa. This is the dwelling place or city of the Atma, who is of nature of changeless consciousness, who is unborn, therefore changeless and consciousness. That Atma as though dwells in this city. So where does it dwell? When you go to a city, you can infer whether the king is there present or not. When the king is there, everything is in order. When king is traveling or something, then things may become very loose because there is nobody to supervise or control or rule. Thus, when you find there in a city, everything is functioning according to rule, then you can infer a ruler. If you do not see the ruler, you can infer there must be a ruler. Visit somebody's house, looking at the condition of the house, you know whether the lady of the house is there or not. Otherwise, you can see the condition of that place. Thus, when the house is in order, you know that there is someone who keeps it in order. So when you find that everything is well governed and everything is functioning according to rule, then there must be a ruler. Even if you do not see the ruler, you can infer there must be a ruler. So also in the city of this body, everything is functioning very systematically, according to rule. Therefore, there must be a ruler, and that is Atma. And the king dwells in a palace. So in more than one place in the Upanishads, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also is Dahara Vidya, where Dahara, the small space in the heart, is said to be the dwelling place of Atman. The Kathopanishad describes the body as a city of 11 gates. Bhagavad Gita describes the city, a body as a city of 9 gates. Dakhram vipapam paramesha bhutam yat pundarikam. We are chanting that mantra also in the evening. So in many places, the heart is described as a dwelling place of the self. Not that the self is confined to the heart. Atma is all pervasive, it can't be confined to a place. But heart is the place where the presence of Atma is most resplendent, evident. That is where consciousness or Atma manifests as I. Therefore the heart is said to be the dwelling place of Atma. Like the palace, if the body is a city, heart is comparable to palace where the king himself is dwelling. So Kathopanishad describes it this way. This is where you may have heard. It describes this body as a city of 11 gates, and this analogy is well explained there in this manner. So go back to Kathopanishad, you will find this. When we love someone, there can be 2 types of attachments. One is expectation from that person towards me. Other is my own attachment towards that person. Number 1, that is expectation we can control by not expecting anything from them. But my attachment towards them, how do I manage this second type? That is the type number 2. How to love someone without feeling attached to them? There cannot be love without attachment. This business of attachment, you cannot love somebody without attachment. There's nothing wrong in attachment. There's no life without attachment. There's no relationship without attachment. You can relate to somebody only if there is an attachment. This is a child, is a special child to me because my child. I have a special relationship with that child, whether it is spouse, brother, sister, friend. This in all loving relationships there is attachment. Attraction is there, attachment is there. That is what connects the 2 persons. So attachment, there is nothing wrong in attachment. There is no life without attachment, I tell you. I am the only one to say that because Vedanta is always dismiss attachments. But where is life without attachment? Who can live life without attachment? I don't think it's practical that you can live. You can relate to your spouse, your children, grandchildren, my grand. Without attachment, how can you do that? And that's a special one, and there are so many children like that, but my relation is very special. When it comes to that, I have a different feeling, that's called attachment. So I personally do not see anything wrong in attachment. I think that is what makes life worthwhile. And human beings enjoy that privilege of attachment. Where we have to watch out is it should not become a binding attachment. That attachment should not slow, that attachment, or I should say affection or love, should not become binding love. Inasmuch as I become more and more dependent, what happens is that inadvertently we become more and more dependent upon that person for our sense of well-being or happiness. So dependence can be called attachment, the binding attachment. Love should not be binding, is not. But when that love results into my being dependent upon that person for my sense of well-being, then automatically there are expectations of what that person should do in order for me to be happy. So then it becomes binding attachment. That's why we have to watch out. When attachment becomes binding, I start controlling. Why do I start controlling? Because only when the object of attachment conducts himself or herself in a certain way, that is when I am comfortable or happy. So I start controlling the other person for my own happiness. Because I am happy only when the other person conducts themselves in certain manner, which I consider as love, whatever, and therefore I become demanding, controlling. If we do not pay attention to our relationships, then our affection or love can become binding. When we become more and more dependent upon the other person for our sense of well-being or happiness, then what the other person does becomes extremely important to me, because I project that this is when the person does this, then the person loves me. Does something else, doesn't love me. So love gets a certain definition, therefore then I expect the other person to behave in a certain way and not behave in a different way, and so on and so forth. Whose phone? Who called you? Who were you talking to? Why were you late last night? A million questions will come. Because slowly and slowly I cannot trust the person, or I become so sensitive. So this is where we will watch out, that our love does not become a binding love in as much as it does not become a demanding, controlling love. Love, ideally, is always accompanied with freedom. Love means that I enjoy the person as a person is. Attachment means I can enjoy that person only when the person behaves in certain way. Otherwise I cannot. And so there is no relationship where there is pure love, by the way. But in our relationship, let us identify these elements of what we call attachment. What is attachment? Expectations, demands, for my sake. And as best as possible, we overcome. Because then only we give the other person freedom. More expectations are there, more control can be there, less freedom I accord to the other person, more binding that love becomes. And so, we have to watch out. It slowly slips. In the beginning it is good. We are not careful, then slowly the relationship, it's a, what do you call it, the slippery, yeah, it's a slippery path. Don't pay attention, then this happens. And therefore, watch out. Attachment is good, love is required. There can be no relationship without that. But when in that attachment the expectations come, then some expectation also expected. I mean, nobody can be free from expectation. But if I am willing to give the benefit of doubt to the other person, even if my expectation is not fulfilled, I still accept that the person loves me. That not that person loves me only when they satisfy such conditions and expectations. This ideal situation is nowhere existing anyway. Nowhere there is an ideal situation, but we try to make it as close to that as possible, so that we can enjoy the person as a person is ideally. That's called love. Like there is a flower, you enjoy the flower as it is. Moment you please wear the mask. Who is not wearing mask, kindly wear the mask. How a flower I can enjoy because I have no demand from flower. If I wanted the flower to be bigger than what it is, the color should be, shade should be such different, then I can't enjoy it. Moment expectation comes, we cannot enjoy the thing as it is. And so ideally to be able to enjoy, and for that we have to grow. To be able to become free from expectation, I have to grow. It cannot be a will. Swamiji even says, the person says that when I can deal with that expectation, you cannot. I can control by not expecting anything. You cannot, because expectation is not by will. Understand? You don't have will to expect. Expectation happens. Meaning that we do not have freedom not to have expectation. The only way to become free from expectation is to grow in my maturity, grow in my large-heartedness. I become bigger and bigger giver. That's the only way that my expectations will go, not other way. I can't expect to remain what I am. No, I won't have an expectation. That will not happen, because expectation does not seek my permission. It just happens. Just as expectation is not a product of will, the freedom of expectation also cannot be freedom of a product of will. Expectation shows my need, and more I become free from need, less the expectation will be. And more I become free from need, more I grow within myself, in my large-heartedness, in my values. So all relationships demand that we have to become bigger than what we are. And how much big we can be? You can be as big, ideally, that there is nothing more, then you become limitless. But anyway, that's the whole thing. Our Puja Swami used to say that marriage makes a person a yogi. If you want to be a yogi, or you can be anything. You can be on the street also, but then, because when you get married to somebody, you have to accommodate that person, and you have to become larger than what you are. Every relationship demands that I should grow in my largeness. That is how you can progressively become free from expectation. Not because now I'm not going to expect. It's not that you're expecting. Expectation happens. As long as there is lack and want within, expectation will take place. We work on our lack and want by being a giver, by being contributor. More I contribute, less my need will be. Less my needs are, less expectations are. Meaning that we cannot become free from expectation simply by will, by growing that we can become free. And that is what the whole idea is about life. then automatically expectations go, so attachment also goes, becomes healthier. Since avatara of Brahman is by choice, are the avatars and incarnations also subject to prarabdha and sanchita karma? Meaning that an incarnation such as Lord Krishna, does he also have prarabdha? Does he also exhaust sanchita karma? No. You already said. Since avatar of Brahman is by choice. See, otherwise nobody who is born has a choice. We are not born by choice. It is our karma that determines our birth. Where I am born, with what embodiment I get, what's the lifespan I have, and all sorts of things, all decided by karma. So that is called the birth of a jiva, which is the result of karma. We call it prarabdha karma, which is a part of sanchita karma. Avatara, you say free by choice. Choice can be there only when you are not controlled by karma. Meaning avatara is not controlled by karma, avatara chooses in what form it will be born, where it will be born, how long will it continue. All of this is by choice. So, avatara of Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, the avatars are only to accomplish some task, and as the task is over, they are left. Nrsimha, all of these avatars. Varaha, Nrsimha. But then avatar of Vamana a little longer, Parshurama a little longer, Rama a little longer, Krishna a little longer. Because there it was the choice that the incarnation was taken to accomplish a certain task. The earlier incarnations were in response to a one task. That Nrsimha was born just to kill Hiranyakashipu. Varaha took place, were born for killing Hiranyaksha. So these avatars had one specific task. As the word, they also disappeared. Later avatars had more to do, and that is why avatara chooses how long it lives, what it does. It is not controlled by karma. Ajopi sanna vyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi sanna prakritim swam adhisthaya samavami atmamaya. Lord Krishna says that I am Ishvara, I am not controlled by karma. I control my maya and take the form which is suitable for a given response. So to answer this question, so prarabdha karma for avatara, because it doesn't perform karma. See, karma can be for the one who performs karma, who has a sense of doership, kartrutva. But Bhagavan doesn't have kartrutva. Maya adhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam. Lord Krishna says that it is in my presence that the Prakriti performs the act of creation, sustenance, dissolution. I am just the witness. So ideally Ishvara does not do anything. There is no kartrutva. Nashamam tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya. Udasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. Lord Krishna, they perform the actions of creation, sustenance, dissolution, but they don't mind this karma, don't mind me. Because I'm an attached witness to all of this. So there is no karma, no kartrutva, no karma, no prarabdha, no accumulation of karma, nothing as far as Bhagavan is concerned, as far as the avatara is concerned. What was the purpose of this question? One minute.
So, when avatars perform the act of killing, like Hiranyakasipa or whoever, to me it appeared like an act. But I think you explained by saying it is an act, but there is no kartrutvam in that act.
Right. Yes. Otherwise we're bound. That is why Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Hatvapi saiman lokan na hantina nibadhyate yasya naham kruto bhavaha buddhir yasya lipyate. One is free from ahankrutaha means sense of individuality. There kartrutvam and there bhoktrutvam. Hatvapi saiman, even after killing all these also, he doesn't get bound and doesn't get attached. So that's how, it's not only avatara, that's how Bhagavan is constantly working, by the way. Constantly acts of creation, sustenance, so constantly taking place, is not so? Who is doing that? What makes the sun and moon shine and rivers flow and what makes all this? Ishvara? All happens in his presence. Otherwise, nothing will happen. If he has kartrutva, then he is bound. Moment doership comes, hurt and guilt will be there. Problems will be there. Bhagavan cannot afford to have problems. Meaning that things take place in presence of Ishvara. Who is Vaishvanara? Who is Kubera? The mantra Pushpanjali. Raja Dirajaya Prasayasayine Namo Vayam Vai Shravanaya Kurmahe. He is Vaishravana. Same Kaman Kama Kamaya Mahyam Kameshwara Vai. Is that the mantra you are asking about?
I keep repeating that prayer, but I don't have it. Nobody has been able. Is that Ganesha and Shiva?
Give the microphone there, please.
Keep repeating the prayer. I assume it is Ganesha and his father is Shiva. Am I correct?
This is a general prayer. You have prayer booklet, by the way.
Yeah. The prayer booklet is there, but the explanation is
The
not
translation is there.
there. It's there.
Should be there. But this is the general mantra which is recited while showing the camphor to any devata, not only Ganesha. Here that mantra is chanted while showing light to Lord Ganesha, but it is recited when we show light to any devata. Raja Dhirajaya Prasahya Sahine. To Raja Adhirajaya, the king of all the kings, who becomes pleased immediately. Namo Vayam Vaishravanaya. To Vaishravana, we also name of Kubera, that we offer our salutations, may fulfill all our desires. So it is a prayer to Kubera, who is the lord of the wealth. But the mantra is chanted by showing light to any devata. So these mantras that are there, by the way, whether I should say this in audience or not, no connection with what you are doing, by the way. It's a mantra that is traditionally chanted while doing a certain thing. If you look at the meaning of mantra, it may have nothing to do with what action is being performed. So they chant some mantra while showing the, what do you call it? Not arti, but the dhupam, yeah, some mantra. So it may nothing to do with dhupa or deepa. Uddipya, some deepa word comes. For example, while all this pushpanjali, because the word pushpa comes. Pushpavan, prajavan, pasuman, bhavati. That's why the whole mantra is chanted as pushpanjali. And it's a mantra, a beautiful mantra, but whether it has any connection with offering pushpa, etc., is a different thing. You follow what I'm saying? So this is the karma kanda where mantras have their application in a given karma. And so these various mantras are chanted may or may not be connected to the particular upachara that is being done. So one of those mantras, they are chanted while showing the camphor light to Devata. When I say this, I am not doing service to our tradition, but this is how the whole karma kanda is. What the Mimamsakas have done is connected all the mantras of Samhita section, and these mantras are called pramana only when they are employed in performance of ritual. So the mantras of Samhita become pramana only when there is an application of mantras in karma kanda. So karma kanda is a brahmana, where Brahma is the Samhita portion and the karma kanda shows what is the application of those mantras in karma. If you cannot associate a mantra with karma, then mantra is no good for them, it's not a pramana. Amnesya kriyartatva is only meant for kriya. This is how they reduce the whole thing, to karma. Anyway, and therefore, there need not be a connection between a ritual being performed and the mantra being recited during that ritual. Whether I should tell you this or not is a different matter. You keep it with you and don't spread it around. How do coming events cast their shadows through dreams? Is that what he said? Coming events cast their shadows. So dream is an additional thing, isn't it? Coming events cast their shadows. Huh? They're shadows. Yeah, because something coming in the shadow comes first, depends on where the source of light is. So coming events cast their shadows, meaning that coming events in some way give us a hint of what is going to happen. That's depends upon our own sensitivity, but it's possible that you may have a feeling, a gut feeling, an inside feeling of what can happen. So sometimes there are human minds that are quite sensitive that may sense what is likely to happen. And therefore I think this saying, coming events cast their shadows. Event is coming, the shadow comes first. If the light is behind that, shadow will come first to you and then the event will come. So it is possible perhaps to judge what event may happen depending upon what's happening in the present, what may happen in the future. That is the idea behind this. Whether through dreams or not is also a subjective thing. Depends on the person. Some people have tremendous dreams and they see a lot of things in the dream that's going to happen, but that's not rule. That what's going to happen will necessarily appear in dream is not a rule. It does happen to some people.
Yes, Swamiji, this question is mine. You're right that it's not a rule that coming events will cast their shadows before, but in certain circumstances they do. I am speaking from my live experience. 1 month ago, I was going through a dream between 3 and 4 a.m. when I was going up the hill on a two-wheeler scooter. My scooter will not stop and start, kick start. It will go a little more forward, then stop again. It happened 2-3 times, then I wake up from my dream. 4 hours after, about 8 a.m., I got a call from a very close friend that we have to go to the hospital right away, because the hospital called my friend at the same time when I was going through the dream. That was between 3 and 4 a.m. What it was, the hospital was trying to resuscitate his daughter between 3 and 4 a.m. And the hospital called her father between 3 and 4 a.m., come to the hospital. Then her father called me, we have to go to the hospital, and that patient eventually passed away. Why I'm saying is coming events cast their shadows before. One place a person is being resuscitated, other place somebody else is going through the dream of that resuscitation. I was trying to revive my scooter. Try kick start, it won't go, start and stop. That's my question.
This is more an exception than a rule, I think.
Is exception to the rule.
It is an exception rather than a rule.
Yes, that's exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it is possible that you may get a hunch about what's going to happen. It's quite likely. It depends also on your own sensitivity. Some people are more sensitive and they're able to, I guess, sense what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's possible how well connected you are with the other person. You have a soul-to-soul connection or
Yes.
something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Could be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You wanted to ask a question?
No.
Yeah, so, Namaste Swamiji, Jai Shri Krishna. So I have a question on, this is our Manushya Yoni is a karma yoni, and we do a karma, so we have a free will to do a karma. We are also, do our bhogas are governed by our prarabdha, which is prarabdha karma phala, right? So we have both this free will plus this prarabdha, they play with us. Now, if we have a free will, until we perform that karma, what we will do is unknown, right? To at least to a performer. And depending upon choices he makes, accordingly the karma gets performed and action takes place. If so, Ishvara, who is considered Sarvagnya, he also doesn't know?
All the standard questions.
Yeah, I know, but
Those have nothing else to do when we keep on discussing like this, in the philosophy, that if Ishvara is Sarvagnya, then how can there be free will?
Yeah, so I think that's...
This question goes on everywhere. That if you have free will, that means you have the choice, and Ishvara doesn't know what you're going to do, then how can he be called Sarvagnya, etc.? But let us put it this way, that we have free will, that you would accept. Yep. Don't ask me how can this, that there is free will. So there is no question of why is it or how can it be, it is there. Ishvara Sarvagnya also is there. You follow? These are two facts. So the question, we cannot question something which is evident. I cannot ask, how can you be here? You could not be here. I saw you yesterday in Boston. How can you be here? But you are here. Similarly, you have free will.
But that's the only thing that Sarvagnya, if the event is known to Ishvara before it takes place, then obviously there is that undeterministic
Keep it closer to your mouth. What is it?
Okay, sorry, my bad. You got my question, right? The subsequent explanation.
No, I heard this question again in the past, this standard question floating around. And among people nothing else to do, as, how can Ishvara be Sarvajna when there is free will? How can there be free will? All I can say is we have free will. And we can say Ishvara is Sarvajna also, because everything is manifestation of only omniscience of Ishvara. Why will you look? This, we said a number of times, this, my thumbprint, you know this thumbprint? Is there anybody else right now in the universe who has the same thumbprint? If they have, then I cannot be, then the intelligence can't do anything. This is the thumbprint that nobody in the universe has right now. Nobody had it in the past, and nobody will have in future. Otherwise, what's the use of storing all these fingerprints? Unless every fingerprint is unique, which was not there, which will not be there, which is not there elsewhere, this fingerprint itself is a demonstration of the omniscience of the Creator. That everything in the universe is unique, everything, every leaf also. There is no leaf identical to that. There is no leaf which was earlier or in future. So whatever the nature creates represents omniscience of Ishvara. And so how can Ishvara omniscient? That's not a question. When omniscience is evident, there cannot be question of how can it be. What is evident, they cannot question. I cannot question, how can you be here? Because you are here. No, I saw you in Boston last night. You saw me. How could you come here? I don't know, but you came here. Then I must give reason how you came rather than how can you come here. I cannot question what is evident. Similarly, that there is omniscience, otherwise creation cannot be. There is free will, otherwise responsibility cannot be. So these are all experienced facts. So you find explanation of how it is not, don't question why or how can it be, because there. So use your mind in explaining how it is there rather than questioning what is there. You follow? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, that's how our mind has to be used. Otherwise you go around in circles.
Swamiji, on the wake of knowledge, from what I studied, Sanchit karma, Agami karma, Kriyaman karma all gets exhausted, but Prarabdha the person has to go through. So why is Prarabdha karma not exhausted on the wake of knowledge?
Prarabdha karma is exhausted for the wise person. There is no prarabdha from his standpoint. Prarabdha is there from the standpoint of the onlookers. He is free from the effect of prarabdha. But prarabdha brings situations. He seems to be going through them, but he is free from the effect of those situations. So prarabdha is from the standpoint of the onlookers.
And to follow up on one of the questions for avatars, just the thought occurred to me is, when person like Sri Ram or Sri Krishna, when the subtle body leaves their gross body, so there is no kartrutva, so there is no binding. So what happens to the subtle body for avatara?
Why for avatara? For even a wise person, the subtle body merges into its components, its sources. All components merge into the sources. There is no individuality left. That's how the Upanishad describes. The Mundaka Upanishad describes also, like Yada Nadyah Chandamana, like the rivers which are flowing merge into the river, the ocean. and the name and form of the river is lost. So also, tatha vidwan nam rupad vimuktaha. The wise is also free from identification of name and form. Paratparam purusham upayati divyam. He attains his true nature. Not that he attains the true nature, the river always was water and remains water when it merges in the ocean. Notion that I am such and such is gone.
Thank you.
But you seem to be hung up with all these karmas. That was your question, sanchita karma, prarabdha. Why worry about karma? Vedanta don't bother with karma. We don't care for karma. We don't care for what happens after death. Why do you worry? You have to worry about what we have to do, that's all. So don't worry, sanchita karma. It's all calculation. This is called accounting business. And you have to account in some way, so the account is given, and you can question it this way and that way, and I won't bother to answer the question or end, because what does it matter? You follow? So anyway, yeah. All right, no more questions, I guess. Yeah. Already a request has come. I know who has made that request anyway. Okay, so please switch off the light. मनोबुद्ध्यहंकार चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः. Join. Shivoham, Shivoham, Chidanandarupah. Nacha pranasannyo navai panchavayuhu nava saptadhatur nava panchakoshaha Navakpanipanam nachopasthapayu chidanandarupa. Everybody. Ham Shivoham chidanandarupa. Name dvesharagau Name lobhamoho mado naiva me naiva matsarya bhavaha na dharmo na chartho na kamo na moksha chidananda rupa Shivoham Nandarupa Shivoham Na punyam na papam na saukhyam na dukkham na mantro na tirtham na vedana yajñah aham bhojanam नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्द नन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्द चिदानन्दरूपः अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपः विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां सदा मे समत्वं न मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् नन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम् ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ॐ